close second, Bronco. It's sad. But what's really sad is it never got weird enough for me. I moved to the country when the boat got too crowded. Then I learned that President Nixon had been eaten by white cannibals on an island near Tijuana. For no good reason at all. Golly, you hear a lot of savage and unnatural things about people these days. Laszlo and Nixon are both gone now. But I don't think I'm going to believe that until I can gnaw on both of their skulls with my very own teeth. Fuck those people, huh? If they're out there, I'm going to find them, and I'm going to gnaw on their skulls. Because it still hasn't gotten weird enough for me.
Hey there, Skullheads, I'm Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
And Silky's got to pimp the website while I make myself a drink. Got a little scotch and some ice.
So, listen, these shows, we bring you random knowledge, random topics. Each episode has a playlist if that calls for one. Tonight's episode will have a playlist.
Absolutely.
One that I lashed together because it's not available. Kind of proud of it. It's nothing I, broke my ass to put together, but I did spend some time on it, so I hope you guys appreciate it. For the ones that would go onto our website and do so.
If you don't appreciate it, you're a swine. Scum.
A filthy swine. Anyway,
right.
On our website, we've got merch, mugs, stickers, T-shirts, hoodies, all with 3 different designs, lovingly put together by Eric Stevens. Great artist in his own right. Check him out, erickstevens.com, I believe, and buy some of his stuff. I said it. But anyway, tonight's episode is kind of a two front thing. I'll let Snags go into it, but it's going to be a good one.
All right, so we're finally paying tribute to the legendary Hunter S. Thompson. You knew it was coming, especially once you cats saw that Bukowski episode. You had to know this was coming.
Sure. And here's a heavy toxicity.
Yeah, so we're both going to be imbibing tonight in the spirit of Hunter Thompson. So deal with it. What you drinking there, Silky?
This is whiskey and cola. Just my go-to. Nothing.
Nice.
Black and whiskey. It's Metallica. Call me a fanboy, but
Metallica it's a damn blackened whiskey, which in their PR marketing says that it's brewed. They blast Metallica when they're aging the whiskey, so you get the sound of Metallica embedded. Yeah,
I've looked at just what that is, and a lot of even Jack Daniels will do this vibration thing on the barrels.
Yeah, but it's not Metallica.
It's not sonic.
Yeah,
it's pretty cosmic, but it's cheap. It's like a $40 bottle.
Nice.
And really good whiskey.
Nice.
So,
yeah. You don't get Death Magnetic, the full album blasted into the essence of the whiskey unless you get Metallica's whiskey.
Yeah. And call it a fanboy. This is just $40 whiskey, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I'm drinking Lafroig single malt Scotch on the rocks.
Nice.
I considered going and buying a bottle of Wild Turkey for this episode, but I decided fuck it. I already got
so for the kids at home that have a Tervis tumbler, what you do is you fill the whiskey up to that first. It's a three finger deal.
Oh,
so you fill the whiskey up to that's more like
he's got this giant plastic cup like a fucking Slurpee cup and he's holding his finger at the halfway mark. You fill the whiskey, up
to
a beer can full of whiskey all the way
above the ice, and then you add a little soda and stir,
dash of Coca-Cola,
shake, religiously.
I've got a little whiskey glass that has a bullet embedded in the side of it. So
very nice. This is the kind of the old-fashioned rocks glass is what I've seen referred to
with a like a 9. I think that's probably a 22 actually.
Yeah, it's a 22. He's 22 and in the glass is a fucking bullet in the side, which it's like your drink was so hard, the alcohol was so hard, it stopped the liquor. It stopped the bullet.
Yeah, it's bullet stopping Lafroig Scotch.
Yeah, I'm straight.
All right, so let's get to the subject here. So
let's jump in.
Yeah, all right. So the twist here, and with us, it's never going to be a normal podcast. We're always throwing you curveballs. That's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah. It's because we care.
It's because we care. On June 9th, 2010, a dog was born. Part Weimaraner, part Golden Retriever. And for some reason, they look like lean black labs. If you look up Gold Mariner on Google, that's what you'll see. And I got a phone call from the wife around then, a couple days later, and she said, "Let me take you out for a beer after work." And I knew this means she's gonna ask something of me. Here we go.
I would love to be asked something. Take me out for drinks. Go ahead.
So we go out, and she buys me a beer, and she shows me a picture of this litter of puppies, and she says, what do you want, a boy or a girl?" And at the time, we had 2 female cats bitching it out for top alpha bitch cat of the house. A lot of drama,
And you got all the menstruals.
Yeah. And it turned out later we realized they were fighting over me because when one of them died, the one was always on my lap and the other one was always pissy. And then when that one passed away, the pissy one always on my lap. So they were fighting over me. So
what's that like having pussy fight over you?
I don't know, man. It's just part of being a rock star.
Fantastic.
You get used to it.
Yep.
So So then and then we had one little cat named Mo after Mo from the Three Stooges. He was a boy who was just total non-drama. So I was like, we need more of that non-drama energy in the house. Let's get a boy from this litter. Yes, we can get a dog.
Yep.
And
less government, less estrogen.
Yeah, and so I mounted a serious campaign to get this dog named Lemmy, and she wouldn't do it. I was, come on, we gotta name him Lemmy, and it wasn't happening. And so then I said, and she said, "You got any other ideas?" And I said, "Well, how about Hunter S. Thompson?" And she was familiar with Hunter S. Thompson. She likes his writing. She loved the name Hunter. And this dog was literally named Hunter S. Thompson. Like if you looked at his dog tag, it said Hunter S. Thompson.
That's fantastic.
Because he's part Weimaraner, he had this crazy side. He was also very charismatic. Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, collected a lot of friends throughout his life. He was very charismatic, very likable. If you weren't a screwhead, he would collect you as a friend pretty easily. And Hunter S. Thompson, the dog, was the same way. He walked with an attitude and a strut, so we nicknamed him Boogie. And people always wanted to pet him. We'd be walking Hunter S. Thompson down the street, and cars would screech to a stop. This literally happened like 3 times throughout his life. Car stops, person jumps out, runs, can I pet your dog? And I wish I could have found something for this bastard to sell because he would have made us rich.
Right.
And then he also had a crazed side to his personality, like his namesake. We really named him accurately. Sure. He would do this thing where he would start humping a pillow in the living room while Marissa Bell is making dinner, right? And
who hasn't done that? Let me just weigh in.
Well, I usually wait till she leaves the house to hump the pillows. But anyways,
right, yeah.
But so he's just doing it right in front of her while she's making dinner. She's got food on the counter, so she would run to stop him from humping the pillow, and he would circle around through the skull cave, which is my hangout room, and then back into the hallway. So she's chasing him in this circular pattern. Now he's leading the way back into the kitchen, grab the food off the counter. So he was very strategic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And
I do that on the nightly.
Yeah.
Hump the pillow, chase through, grab the food.
He had it all planned out. And then one time we're having this
epic
long dinner out on the patio in the back, and steaks, grilled up 3 steaks, one for each of us and one for later. And that one for later is on the plate in the middle of the table. It's a beautiful spring evening. He's totally chill, laying beside us on that patio for 2 hours. No signs of craziness,
movement. Yeah.
And we finish our steaks. She gets up to go to the restroom. I get up to go clean off the grill and start putting it up. And within a half a second, he's in the backyard with that last steak. He had been plotting the whole time. Crazy.
Planning, watching.
Right. And I think his most Hunter S. Thompson moment, though, was one time when I'm walking him down the street, and this jogger is jogging towards us. And this was a 90-pound dog. When he stood up, he was as tall as you or me.
Yeah.
This jogger's jogging towards us, and he wants to say hi to the jogger, and he literally lunges up at the jogger's face to lick him, but the jogger didn't know this. This dog's coming right at his face. I yank him back at the last moment, and this jogger's face was just completely pale white, like he had just seen death. This giant black dog lunging towards him, and I just said, oh, sorry about that. He just wanted to say hi, and the guy just looked at me like he wanted to kill me, but he couldn't because that was a giant black dog on a chain. And so that was Hunter S. Thompson. He passed away last Thursday, September 28th, 2023, at the age of 13, which is a long life for a dog. So here's to Hunter S. Thompson, the dog, before we start talking about his namesake, the writer.
We've kind of put you guys through it, but 34 episodes in, we'd like to think that you're in for the long haul.
You have to. If you don't care, fuck off and get out of here.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. Here's to Hunter S. Thompson, the dog. May he kick ass in Dog Valhalla, which is where he is right now, kicking ass with the gods. He's actually.
Is there a pillow I can hump? And a steak I can steal.
You know what he's doing right now? He's attacking the Richard Nixon doll. He's hanging out with Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, who's also in Valhalla.
Damn straight.
And he's attacking that Nixon doll for him.
Right at the blue jeans.
Right where it counts.
Hunter Thompson saying, he's never like this. I don't.
That's right. Nixon. Anyway.
Nixon.
So let's start talking about Hunter S. Thompson, the writer. We're 13 minutes in, so that's appropriate.
Hunter Thompson is just a vicious prose master. Wrote for Rolling Stone magazine, which eventually turned into just a filthy rag for
corporate rock.
No.
We can both agree that Rolling Stone is a piece of crap. But let's rewind back to Hunter S. Thompson's early years. So I've been reading this great book. Let me hip you cats to the title and the author. It's basically a biography of Hunter S. Thompson. It's called Outlaw Journalist by William McKean, who was a friend of Hunter's. And just getting hip to his early years, as you would expect. Hunter S. Thompson, growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, he was a ringleader for this crazed gang of kids. They did all kinds of insane shit, and this is like the 50s, right? Keep in mind this is the 50s. He would go into stores, and he had a friend of his learn how to fake an epileptic seizure. So they go into a store, and then his friend would start all over the floor, while the shopkeeper's like freaking out and trying to deal with the kid. Hunter and his friends are ripping off a bunch of stuff from the store, right? So that was one of their gags.
Goddamn whippersnappers!
I'm telling you, another thing they did is there's a bunch of people standing in line outside a movie theater, right, trying to get to a movie, and Hunter S. Thompson has a friend of his standing in line, this ringer basically standing in line at the movie theater. And out of nowhere, Hunter and some of his other friends screech up right next to the curb and jump out and yank the friend into the car. And he's like, pretend screaming, "Oh, help, oh, call the police." Yank him into the car, slam the door, and speed off. That faked kidnapping made the local newspaper in Louisville, Kentucky. So they faked this kidnapping outside a movie theater and totally fooled the local press. Things came to a head.
Hilarious.
Yeah, they were always doing shit like that.
Really,
and
fucking hilarious.
And convincing adults to buy them, booze at the liquor store. Well, things came to a head when Hunter and his gang of thug friends from high school rob there were a couple couples that were in a car in a park, and they're in there, one couple in the front seat making out, another couple in the back seat making out. Well, Hunter and his friends come up, and they basically mug them and threaten to ravage the girls if they don't get if they don't get the wallets handed over and everything. And
see, and you think about the Zodiac killer and shit like that. When you're out in the backwoods area trying to pick some girl's locks, trying to get things rolling.
Oh yeah,
it's just rude to come up and be interrupted. Like, damn, man, I'm trying to get mine.
It was more than rude. They basically robbed them. Right. So
yeah, that's a level I don't, we're all for shits and giggles, but that's
so what I'm saying. That's when he starts attracting the attention of the law in Louisville, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other cats in his crew were from the upper crust of Louisville society, so they get like $50 fine, probation, whatever. Hunter gets sentenced to 60 days in jail. He was from the lower echelons. And
right.
And his dad was dead. His mom was a struggling alcoholic single mother.
That's what I was going to ask. What's his home life like? That sucks.
His dad was an older man who was married for the second time when he had Hunter. So he married this. He was like, I think he's like 43. Marries this 27-year-old cutie.
Oh yeah.
Hunter's the first of the 3 kids they have. Anyway, so Hunter attracts the attention of the law eventually, with his mugging routine. Goes to jail for 30 of the 60 days that he was sentenced to. Gets let out for good behavior, but the cops and the judge are basically like, we have our eye on you. He immediately goes out and wrecks some uh, got some job driving a delivery van or something. I'm a little vague on it.
All right.
And
Yeah.
backs it into a
Courier gig.
backs it into a cop car. So he immediately, before he could even deal with the trial or whatever, the judge had mentioned something about him possibly joining the military as a way to get out of town. He just immediately went to the Air Force recruiting office and signed up after that happened. He's like, I'm not even going to wait and deal with this. So he goes to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, and that's where he gets the job as the editor of the sports section for the Eglin Air Force Base newspaper. And that's where he starts writing and realizing he wasn't the best writer at first. His grammar sucked and spelling sucked and everything, but he loved writing. And it's just proof if you like something, you stick to it eventually, unless it's a podcast, eventually it becomes successful, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, eventually he gets, after a couple years there at Eglin, running the sports section, he gets honorably discharged because, you know, Hunter Thompson and authority, that's not two things that are going to work out. Starts submitting articles to all these magazines, and he's getting the usual rejection letters. And unlike a normal human being who would get the rejection letter and then move on, maybe save the rejection letters for when they become famous, Hunter would write these angry rebuttals to the rejection letters. It'd be like, you bastard swine, you don't recognize good writing when you see it.
His ability to hit visceral adjectives, he would just rip someone down at a molecular level.
Oh, yeah.
And that is what, it just always appealed to me at a young age. And we'll get into his books soon.
We're almost there, yeah.
God, he just...
Yeah.
He was phenomenal.
Yeah. So he started, and that's actually where he developed his style, was in these personal letters. People would hang out with him and hear him talk and read his personal letters and then read these articles he was writing, and there was a disconnect, right? So
right.
He eventually gets this gig. He as a Latin American correspondent for the National Observer, which is this publication kind of conceived of as a weekly version of the Wall Street Journal. He tells them, he just writes the editor and says, hey, man, I'm going to go to Latin America. Let me be your Latin American correspondent. And the guy took him up on it. And his first article, I think he's hanging out with drug smugglers in Latin America.
But see, there's echoes of Hemingway here, where
Hemingway was his idol. Totally.
Yeah, he leaves the safety, the shelter of I'm in the USA, but I'm gonna go. You know, Hemingway fucking leaves and goes, you know, and drives an ambulance.
The Spanish Civil War. Yeah. So he basically was, kind of imitating that
situation.
There's some quote where earlier in his life he's saying, what life do you want to have? Do you want to go out and live, or do you want to just sit at home and just let it all pass you by? Something like that. And of course he chose the latter. Right. And people like Hemingway inspired him to do this. He loved Henry Miller, Faulkner, all those cats. So he writes a series of articles from Latin America. There's one article where he's hanging out with this cat who's like, I think he's a British guy, upper crust cat, who's on the penthouse of his apartment complex in Latin America, and one of these countries, I forget which, and he's just whizzing golf balls off the roof. And he's drinking gin and tonics. This guy is drinking gin and tonics and just whizzing golf balls off the roof. And God knows where they're landing. They're landing, on somebody's head, smashing somebody's window.
window,
And it
car.
was basically an article on, arrogance, the arrogant colonial arrogance of, the people
Sure.
occupying Latin America. But it's these kind of articles that start getting people's attention. And for the first time, like, he had this magazine where some of the editors, the main cats in charge of the National Observer, loved what they were getting. It wasn't the crazed adventures of a rogue journalist high on mescaline causing havoc type stuff yet, but it was slightly off kilter, interesting stories from interesting locations.
Yeah, I think he brought a blue collar realism to his early writing, and if you read like the Rum Diaries, when he's down in what is it, Puerto Rico?
Oh, it's Puerto Rico for sure. Yeah. We'll get to the Rum Diaries.
When he's down in Puerto Rico,
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's his. When he's writing like that,
I need some more ice.
It's
for
very
my second scotch here. Sorry, go ahead.
It's very approachable. You don't have to. I will say, like we mentioned Hemingway.
Ice is very important for a scotch. It gives it character. I can't do this.
It's very important to keep.
I can't do
you
whiskey
have to have
neat.
some chill.
You need ice.
No, no, I don't understand the neat. The guy that wants to drink it neat is really a prick.
Absolutely, a scurvy, bastard swine.
Like, dude, you're not trying to interact and socialize. You just want to get hammered.
And you don't want to hear the clink of the ice. The clink of the ice is
it's a whole organic thing. It's
you gotta have the clink of the ice.
I personally, I don't listen to music to get to the guitar solo. I want to hear it all the way up to the guitar solo and know
that too.
Oh, here we go.
For sure.
Here we go. Sure. It's all you got to have ice. It's something very beautiful.
Ice is life.
Clinky,
Man.
Clinky.
Ice, baby.
Get out of here.
So, anyways, go ahead.
So, Hunter Thompson writing down in Puerto Rico, I think he had a very approachable prose, blue collar. It's not like, we mentioned Ernest Hemingway earlier. Hemingway, if you pick up any Hemingway, there's a moment where you might have to reread his initial opening. For me, any author, sometimes you have to get their cadence, you have to get their verbiage, almost like you have to kind of intake their rhythm with their words.
Do you know what Hunter S. Thompson used to do? Exactly what you're doing. He would take books he admired, like The Great Gatsby or any of the Hemingway, any of these authors that he loved, and retype the entire fucking book so he could get that cadence that you're talking about. His whole philosophy about writing was it's no different from jazz. That you got a rhythm, you got a melody, you got a cadence, and he would want to get inside the minds of the authors that he admired, and he would sit down and rewrite The Sun Also Rises on his typewriter just so he could feel like what it felt like to write these words. That's why he became such a fucking brilliant genius. Wow. Keep going. Wow. I interrupted you, but it was irrelevant.
No. Well, I was just getting that you jump into Hemingway, and I'd always heard of Hemingway. I read Sun Also Rises. I've personally, I have read all of his short stories and his poetry. There's a book of poetry that that may be the first thing he had published. And with his writing, Hemingway, there's a moment where you got to really almost reread it a few times. But once you get his, like I said before, once you get his cadence, now you're rolling again. The wheels are turning, and you're able to follow what he's talking about. And I personally love Hemingway. I love his subject matter and just all of it. There's an edge, there's an adventure, there's almost a personal, or there's definitely a personal thing. But Hemingway is amazing. But I never, until tonight discussing all this, I did not see the similarities, but there is a lot of the same.
Yeah.
um,
Hemingway was a major
appeal.
influence on Hunter Thompson.
Yeah.
Major.
Hunter Thompson is just phenomenal, and books like some of his later
We'll get
books
to the books.
where
We'll get to the books.
yeah.
So basically, he does this Latin American correspondent thing for the National Observer for a while, and then that runs its course. He comes back. The National Observer, he's proposing other articles for them. A lot of times he would propose an article to get free shit, though. He'd be like, he's out in California. He wants to go home to Kentucky for Christmas. So he's like, hey, let's do an article on a cross-country train trip, So
Nice.
He's
no dummy.
Yeah, he eventually kind of runs his course with the editors at the National Observer. Decides he wants to write for something more radical. So he starts writing for The Nation, which is, and again, we don't really do politics on this podcast, but that's basically a left-wing magazine that writes about left-wing politics and stuff like that. They basically get him to do a couple articles. They didn't pay very well. But the significant thing about his stint with The Nation, he does a couple articles for them. The second article, the editor of The Nation says, hey, why don't you do a profile on this this outlaw motorcycle gang we keep hearing about, Hell's Angels? So he goes, he gets paid $100 to do an article. And the difference, but there had been articles on the Hells Angels before, but the difference was with Hunter Thompson, the previous articles, the journalists would go to the cops and say, tell us what you know about the Hells Angels. We're doing an article. So it's the cops' perspective, and I'm sure a lot of it was true. They weren't fucking angels. They were Hells Angels.
Sure.
The history of the Hells Angels is interesting because they're a bunch of ex Air Force or Army Air Corps guys from World War II come back.
Yeah, pilots and stuff. I would say the first chapters were heroes. They
were pilots in World War II. Their squadron was called the Hells Angels, which makes sense. We're coming down from above, raining hellfire on you. They come back,
and they had been through it and come back to America and start working on bikes. And nothing.
A lot of them, a lot of them were deaf because they were on these gunner airplanes, and they just blew out their hearing.
Yeah.
And they weren't assimilating back into society, and they just formed a motorcycle club, and the rest is history. But anyways, Hunter takes a different approach from the other articles on the Hells Angels, and he, through a mutual friend ex-Hells Angel who's working in the press, gets in touch with Sonny Barger, who's the head Hells Angel, and starts hanging out with him. And so his article is from the inside out, and he got $100 from The Nation and the article published, but flooded with book offers after that. Everybody's just, man, write a book, we'll pay you. And he eventually
book.
He eventually ends up doing a hardcover for Random House. First it's through the cheap paperback division, but then the serious cats at Random House get wind of it, and that it becomes a hardcover first through Random House. And that's the book. I've got some quotes from the book, which I figured we could I could rattle off some quotes, but do you have a summary of the book? You want to?
Well, I mean, it's easy. He gets in. He's inundated with the whole drug culture.
But you have a summary like that you can
know,
read, like from your wiki link?
oh, I could,
Let's do that.
All right, so one memory I have though of the Hells Angels, my father, in man's pursuit to, I would say any man out there would relate. We're all trying to get laid. My father, talking to this girl that lived right down the street from Snags high school home, volunteers me to mow her lawn. And I realize where I'm at, and I walk down and, hey man, why don't you come over and I just got to mow this lawn. And I'm thinking I might lasso, in a Tom Sawyer kind of way, get your buddy to help you mow this lawn. And so Snags agrees to walk down where this house is.
I have no memory of this, so I disclaim any involvement in.
Oh no, but you'll own this in a second. You will absolutely own this.
I don't trust you, shifty-eyed, beady-eyed motherfucker.
No, well, so you walk down, and in her front yard is a hammock, and Snags goes, "Oh hell yeah!" Hops in the hammock and pulls out a copy of Hell's Angels and starts reading. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna come out back and help me mow this lawn? And you're like, yeah, no, I'm reading. I got a book here, and I'm like, motherfucker. So this lawn, and granted, this episode's not about mowing lawns. This woman's yard was
a Hunter S. Thompson episode. We can ramble.
This woman's yard was absolutely insane, with ruts and rocks and just, you would need a professional landscaper to mow this lawn once it had gotten out of control. And this bitch had not mowed her lawn in probably months. It was horrific. But what I'm getting at with that story is Snags had this copy of Hell's Angels, and I was like, oh wow, Hell's Angels. And almost I hate to do it because it does kind of tip a hat towards Snags, almost in like a younger brother wanting to emulate
totally
what the
cool
brother
one that hipped you to all this shit. Yeah, you would have had no chance if you hadn't met me. But anyways, go ahead.
What's crazy though is as we've gotten older, I am far superior in really anything that we discuss. But no, it got me, like, I was like, I'm gonna read that Hell's Angels book, and in my recollection, you actually gave me the book you had finished, for me to, but. So we were going to do just a summary. Is that Hunter Thompson's vivid account of his experiences with California's most notorious motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels, in the mid-'60s. Thompson spent almost 2 years living with the controversial Angels, cycling up and down the coast, reveling in the anarchic spirit of their clan, and as befits their name, raising hell. His book successfully captures a singular moment in American history when the biker lifestyle was first defined and when such countercultural movements were electrifying and horrifying in America. Thompson, the creator of gonzo journalism, writes with his usual bravado, energy, and brutal honesty, and with a nuanced and incisive eye, as the New Yorker pointed out. For all its uninhibited and sardonic humor, Thompson's book is a thoughtful piece of work, as illuminating now as when originally published in 1967. Hell's Angels is a gripping portrait and the best account we have of the truth behind an American legend. One takeaway from that novel that I remember was a woman was on a mattress at this party,
and there was Kesey's Merry Pranksters party. They
Right.
invited a
And
bunch of naive hippies invited the Hell's Angels over to a party.
so this girl is on a mattress. Well, like what I remember is Thompson trying to get in there and trying to do something about it, and they basically put a gun under his face and told him to get
That's
the hell out.
Thompson's exaggeration, probably, but who knows?
Oh, it could be. Could be. That was the takeaway from that book, the horrific imagery of somebody just, on some nasty stank mattress and just a line of people coming and going.
The gangbang part. The gangbang
horrific.
part is definitely true. I'd have to read the Hell's Angels again to verify the
Pretty
rest
horrific.
But so
yeah.
I got a quote from the Hell's Angels. There's this section at the end where Thompson, he bought himself a BAS motorcycle, and it's not a Harley, so they always ragged on him about it. But he basically developed a love for riding motorcycles, and towards the end, there's this sequence where he's just flying down the highway at night. And I'm just going to read that real quick. So the lever goes up into fourth, and now there's no sound except wind. Screw it all the way over. Reach through the handlebars to raise the headlight beam. The needle leans down on 100, and wind-burned eyeballs strain to see down the central line, trying to provide a margin for the reflexes. But with the throttle screwed on, there's only the barest margin, and no room at all for mistakes. It has to be done right, and that's when the strange music starts. When you stretch your luck so far that fear becomes exhilaration and vibrates along your arms, you can barely see at 100. The tears blow back so fast that they vaporize before they get to your ears. The only sounds are wind and a dull roar floating back from the mufflers. You watch the white line and you try to lean with it, howling through a turn to the right, then to the left and down the long hill to Pacifica, letting off now, watching for cops, but only until the dark stretch and another few seconds to the edge. The edge. There is no honest way to explain, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. The others, the living, are those who pushed their control as far as they felt they could handle it and then pulled back or slowed down or did whatever they had to do when it came time to choose between now or later. But the edge is still out there. Or maybe it's in. The association of motorcycles with LSD is no accident of publicity. They are both means to an end, to the place of definitions. Hunter S. Thompson, Hell's Angels.
Haunting.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hunter Thompson, with his second novel, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I think that is the most. Yeah, I think that's the most approachable novel he had. That's the getting on point for a lot of.
So here's how we got from. So Hell's Angels is like this journalistic, conventional journalistic account of one reporter's time with the Hells Angels, but you can hear in that quote that I just read the beginnings of Hunter Thompson's classic style, right? And so he really comes into full Hunter S. Thompson style with a couple of articles after Hells Angels. The first one is an article that Playboy hired him to do. As a profile of a French Olympic skier named Jean-Claude Killy, right? And this cat rocked it at the 68 Olympics. Chevrolet hires him as a spokesman. They hired two spokesmen, Jean-Claude Killy and O.J. Simpson. And those two cats are going around pimping Chevrolet, right, after the 68 Olympics. And Hunter Thompson gets hired by Playboy to do a profile of Jean-Claude Killy. And Jean-Claude Killy was perceived as this slick, suave, ladies' man, expert skier, very much in the mode of the Playboy archetype. And they think they're going to get this article about, this slick guy promoting this slick Playboy lifestyle. And they also think they're going to suck up to Chevrolet and get them as advertisers. Well, Hunter Thompson writes this article, and they get this article, and it's just all about what a boring motherfucker Jean-Claude Kelly is, and how he's a sellout shilling for corporate Chevrolet cars that suck, and that he wouldn't be caught dead driving. And it's just the first complete Hunter Thompson article. He's just ranting the whole time, and it's all about Hunter Thompson trying to squeeze water out of a rock of this dull fucking story that he was hired to write.
Sure.
And so naturally Playboy rejects the article. Well, there's this magazine started up called Scanlons, and their whole thing is we're gonna publish articles by all these new journalist cats like Tom Wolfe and Hunter Thompson and all these guys. So they just snap up the chance to publish the Jean-Claude Kelly article, and that it gets published unedited. Hunter Thompson just raging against the plastic corporate world of Chevrolet and this boring ass ski star. Sure. And then the next article he does for Scanlons is it's about the Kentucky Derby, and that's a little bit more of a well-known article. And it's called "The Kentucky Derby is Decadent and Depraved." And they match him up for that article. They match him up with this illustrator named Ralph Steadman. And that's his first collaboration with Ralph Steadman. And ostensibly to go cover the Kentucky Derby, but it's about, him and Ralph getting drunk in the press box and causing havoc and ragging on all the squareheads that are there watching the Kentucky Derby and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, Thompson brought just a party, massive, almost legendary tolerance for drugs and alcohol,
celebration,
and then and in his novels, you're reading some things where you're like, he can't possibly be functioning, and there's the mystery. Is he just throwing some fiction at you to kind of back up the crazy, or did it really happen?
A mix, but there was.
I would hope it's a mix, but
there was one I forget now in this biography I'm reading where he's basically goes. I think he's meeting the editors of Random House. Yeah, that's it. He's meeting a couple editors from Random House. They hire him to write this Hell's Angels book, and they're getting all the galleys and the drafts and everything, and they're loving the writing, but they never met him. So they bring him out to New York after he's got all the writing done to meet with him and pick his mind for what the next book is going to be. He has 19 wild turkeys at that lunch or brunch. Brunch. 19 fucking wild turkeys, dude. How can you didn't John Bonham die after? How many did John Bonham have?
40 shots of vodka.
So that'll kill you. So he's halfway dead. Well, I couldn't stand up after 5 wild turkeys.
I would. Hey, anyone that has partied with me, I'll outdrink all you fuckers. I'd go 5 or 6 shots, and I'm gonna be fucking somebody else's.
Well, I thought you were gonna say. Never mind. All right. So anyway.
No, I would no longer be accountable for my own actions because I just had.
Anyways, he finds his form with these 2 articles for Scanlons, and then the next thing that happens, through a mutual friend, he gets introduced to Jan Winter at Rolling Stone, and that's where he starts writing. And basically, he told Random House his next book was going to be about the death of the American dream, and he basically. He goes one of the major things he got sent to cover the 1968 Democratic Convention. He ended up getting beat by the cops, as did a lot of the press out there. And So that
Yeah.
scarred him, and
And this,
that changed his outlook a lot.
sure,
And he basically,
a very tumultuous time, which we did kind of cover in the
yeah,
MC5
absolutely. Well, he was
episode.
there getting beat up, and so basically that just fueled his whole death of the American dream thing. Robert Kennedy, who a candidate he really liked in '68, gets shot, and again fuels his death of the American dream thing. But he can't put a form to this book. It's just a concept. And the cats at Random House are like,
Yeah.
when are we getting our death of the American dream book, man? When you delivering that?
Wow.
And he's like,
Really?
I don't know, man. It might have something to do with the convention. It might have something to do with Kennedy.
Yeah, that's the kind of topic you'd have to like almost remove yourself from society to really think out, and he was not going to do that.
And then, yeah, he went the opposite direction. He started engaging. So then he runs for. He convinces a local attorney to run for mayor of Aspen on what he calls the Freak Party ticket because he's disillusioned with both political parties.
Yep.
And he gets him to
run
on the Freak Party ticket. This guy loses by one vote. This guy could have been
he almost won.
I forget Joe something. This local attorney could have been the mayor of Aspen.
And I think that would have changed. He may not have written anything else. I mean, that may have changed his entire
I don't know,
course,
but this was all part of his searching for the death of the American dream thing. And then, next election comes around, he runs for sheriff himself. He runs for sheriff of Aspen on the Freak Party ticket, and he loses. But what happens, he met Jan Winter. He starts writing these articles for Rolling Stone that eventually become the book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is his Death of the American Dream book, eventually gets delivered to Random House. So, Silky, why don't you read us the official, and I know you have a lot to say about this book, but read us the official summary of it and then say what you have to say about it, then I'll bust out some quotes.
Yeah, with this book, it's a cult classic of gonzo journalism. It's the best chronicle of drug-soaked, addle-brained, rollicking good times ever committed to the printed page. It's also a tale of a long weekend road trip that's gone down in the annals of American pop culture as one of the greatest journeys ever undertaken. They did make a movie about it that Terry Gilliam of Monty Python fame, their animator, who was also a character in a lot of skits in the Monty Python, the circus, if you will. It had Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. A great movie, but
we'll get to the movies. Let's stick to the book.
Yeah. But the book covers. There's just so many annex shenanigans, if you will. To me, it is a stepping on point to Hunter Thompson, where his later books on the campaign trail and the Great Shark Hunt, those two kind of sandwiched the 70s because the campaign trail was 72. The Great Shark Hunt probably came out in 78 or 79. Both heavy political. And again, probably part 2 and part 3 of the Death of the American Dream. But them being highly political, I think your average kid who wants to maybe check out something a little more in depth from just the young reader type of fare is going to see some of this and have no way to even relate in any way. But Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, he's stopping in the local burger joint. He's jumping in a big white Cadillac, or not a Cadillac, but they call it the White Whale, I think. But they're doing like riding on the the gates down on the back of the truck, and they're throwing rocks at the runners. They're just all kinds of shenanigans and hijinks. A hilarious book.
I mean, they're basically these drug
read.
fiends who realize they're in the middle of a police convention in Las Vegas. Yeah, which is hilarious. But yeah, I remember when I first read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I spent the next 48 hours drunk and stoned. I just went out and hung out with some friends of mine. It was probably after I read Hell's Angels, or maybe before. It was probably Fear and Loathing was the first one. But I did spend like the next 48 hours drunk. It was a complete lost weekend after that. And we'll get to the movies. Silky and I both agree on which are the better Hunter Thompson movies. But the book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a freaking masterpiece.
It really is, because as crazy as it gets, he keeps everything confined. He keeps the story moving. It's very disciplined. As crazy as the prose are, he does not lose sight of a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's brilliantly put together, because as crazy as it gets, it is a very disciplined story.
So I'm going to read the official kind of wiki summary of it, just because I know we're rambling a little bit. But Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, A Savage Journey to the Heart of the American Dream, is a 1971 novel in the gonzo journalism style by Hunter S. Thompson. The story follows its protagonist, Raoul Duke, which is a fictional version of Hunter Thompson, and his attorney, Dr. Gonzo, a fictional version of Oscar Acosta, and as they descend on Las Vegas to chase the American dream through a drug-induced haze, all the while ruminating on the failure of the 1960s countercultural movement. The work is Thompson's most famous book and is noted for its lurid depictions of illicit drug use and its early retrospective on the culture of the 1960s. Thompson's highly subjective blend of fact and fiction, which it popularized, became known as gonzo journalism. Illustrated by Ralph Steadman, the novel first appeared as a two-part series in Rolling Stone magazine in 1971, before being published in book form in 1972. So that gives you a flavor. I got a couple quotes from it to lay down for you cats. So here's the first one. No sympathy for the devil. Keep that in mind. Buy the ticket, take the ride. And if it occasionally gets a little heavier than what you had in mind, well, maybe chalk it up to forced consciousness expansion. Tune in, freak out, get beaten. Next quote.
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
That's going to be the name of this episode. We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered blotter acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine, and a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, and also a quart of tequila, a quart of rum, a case of Budweiser, a pint of raw ether, and 2 dozen amyls, as in amyl nitrates. Not that we needed all that for the trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can. There you go.
As you can get. There's a bit in that book, I believe, it may be another Thompson book, where they discuss, someone's telling Thompson that if you have a corpse, a fresh corpse, and you're able to pop the eyeball out, that the ocular cavity will milk a hard cock, and it'll be the greatest orgasm you've ever had.
I have no doubt that's in there. No doubt.
And Thompson's like, good God. Like, if there's a moment that you check that your wallet is still in your back pocket in front of a person like that, and you just gently move away, I just remember that, and Thompson's reaction to the guy, like, okay, sounds, I'll let you know. And
too weird for Hunter S. Thompson.
fucking just epic though. And then the poor hotel lady who's got to come in and clean the room. God help the woman that had to go in after Thompson had been there for a few days. What is she gonna find?
It's savage, unimaginable.
You really don't.
That's all I'm saying.
You really,
you
really,
yeah. You will confront the darkest depths of your soul when you walk into a hotel room after Hunter S. Thompson has stayed there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next book, Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. Why don't you read the summary, summary of that one?
Yeah. So, Thompson had written Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is quoted as a cornerstone of American political journalism, one of the best-selling campaign books of all time. Thompson's searing account of the battle for the 72 presidency, from the Democratic primaries to the eventual showdown between McGovern and Nixon. It's infused with the characteristic wit, intensity, and emotional engagement that made Thompson the flamboyant apostle and avatar of gonzo journalism. Hilarious, terrifying, insightful, compulsively readable, Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail is an epic political adventure that captures the feel of the American democratic process better than any other book ever written. And that is just as relevant to many ills and issue roiling the nation today. Johnny Knoxville writes in his foreword to his 50th anniversary edition, Hunter predicted it all.
Oh, totally. It's all come through. The movie Idiocracy have basically predicted everything.
Well, you've got all the actual things that occurred between the different people running, and then what it kind of pulls the curtain back is that all of your journalists, all your respected Dan Rathers, your Walter Cronkites, all your different people that reported the news, they're on these campaign trails, and they've got, maybe 5 minutes of copy to write throughout the day, and they're sipping cocktails and just on the sidelines witnessing the madness of being on the road, on the touring, different cities, and just the campaign itself. And then all they got to do is lash together some horseshit commentary, and then jump on when they're supposed to and go, we're here in Idaho and blah, 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 and this book really sheds light on just almost the hypocrisy where we look at some of these news icons and think that they're just all knowing and
he pulled the curtain back on the bullshit. Totally.
Saints. They're saints, and they're not saints. They're all strung out on alcohol. They're chasing the groupies. They're doing everything. And then the light,
drugged out sex fiend maniacs. Every last one of them.
Yeah. Like, and really,
the thing is, Hunter Thompson was too, but he just put it all out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
he rocked the truth.
Yeah, he brought the truth for.
So I've got some quotes from Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72. The first one is one of Hunter S. Thompson's most well-known quotes, which basically sums up what we've just been saying: is when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. Right? Yeah. All right. Couple other quotes from this book. It's a good book. It's anything that Hunter Thompson writes, even if you're not into politics, it's gonna be interesting. But
he's not gonna just talk down to you and talk over you with
he's gonna entertain jargon. The crap out of you.
He's gonna,
and so
he's gonna blue collar it and almost scare you, because he's not gonna tell you it's all pretty and safe. And I think too many people want safe and nice. I'm reading this nice story.
Ain't nothing nice
Fuck
about
you,
the gonzo journalism. So
No.
I remember bearing down
No.
to read Fear and Loathing in the Campaign Trail 72, and I knew it wasn't going to be as entertaining as Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But let me just lay some verbiage on you cats. I'm going to lay some Hunter S. Thompson words on you cats from this book, and you'll realize the poetry is in there. Just hang with it. So here's the first one. Live steady. Don't fuck around. Give anything weird a wide berth, including people. It's not worth it. I learned this the hard way through brutal overindulgence. Back to Chicago. It's never dull out there. You never know exactly what kind of terrible shit is going to come down on you in that town, but you can always count on something. Every time I go to Chicago, I come away with scars. That's his reference to the fucking Democratic Convention in 68. Here's the next one. And I'll leave you cats with this one from this book. People,
and that's where the MC5 narrowly
listen
escapes.
to our MC5 episode and get a sense of the shit that was going down. You'll never be the same if you listen to that.
Yeah, we were there. We were there.
Dead by -1 year and -2 years, but in essence, we were there.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
People claim to know jackrabbits will tell you they are primarily motivated by fear, stupidity, and craziness. But I have spent enough time in jackrabbit country to know that most of them lead pretty dull lives. They are bored with their daily routines. Eat, fuck, sleep, hop around a bush now and then. No wonder some of them drift over the line into cheap thrills once in a while. There has to be a powerful adrenaline rush in crouching by the side of the road, waiting for the next set of headlights to come along, then streaking out of the bushes with split-second timing and making across the other side just inches in front of the speeding wheels. Which my friend Arthur and I used to do for entertainment back in the 70s when we were like 6 years old. We played Run Out in Front of Cars. So he's nailing it. This is truth. This is the true story right here. Hunter S. Thompson, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around and read other people. Read Hunter S. Thompson.
No, don't pretend that you're down for the truth.
If you don't read Hunter S. Thompson.
This
my drink a little bit here.
So the next book was The Great Shark Hunt.
That was a compilation of essays, and
it ranged in date from like the National Observer days to the era of the Rolling Stone. The Great Shark Hunt offers a myriad highly charged entries, including the first Hunter Thompson piece to be dubbed Gonzo, is where he covers the Kentucky Derby. It's titled "The Kentucky Derby is Decadent and Depraved." It appeared in Scanlan's Monthly in 1970, which snagged that attention. From that essay, a new journalistic movement sprang, which would change the shape of American letters. Thompson's razor-sharp insight and crystal clarity capture the crazy, hypocritical, degenerate, and redeeming aspects of the explosive and colorful 60s and 70s. So The Great Shark Hunt, kind of a part 2 to the campaign trail, but still continues his brilliance. It does not.
That was the first in a series of essay compilation books called the Gonzo Papers. So in the 80s, there was the Gonzo Papers Part 2, Generation of Swine, which Motley Crue ripped off a album title from, and so on and so on. I think there's 4 Gonzo Papers books, but that was the first one, and that's still, as Silky is saying, that's the most important one because it has all the early magazine article shit that we were talking about, and it's still in the 70s when, Hunter Thompson was at the height of his genius. So that's an essential book. it's a compilation of essays, so I'm not going to really bust out any quotes from it. But you got anything else to say about that before we hit the Curse of Lono?
Yeah, no, it really is kind of a continuation on the vibe of the campaign trail, but I feel like the Great Shark Hunt kind of says what he never got to in campaign trail. Like if somebody talks for a long time, they kind of get away from their initial focus, and I really felt that the Great Shark Hunt got to the point, whereas Campaign Trail was a little distracted. But both have a message. Both are solid books. But I feel like he really got to what he was trying to say a few years earlier. With
I can dig that.
The Great Shark
I can
Hunt.
totally dig that. So, Curse of Lono, why don't you hip us to official? And I know you love this book. You actually introduced me to the Curse of Lono. So, I introduced you to Hunter Thompson through the Hell's Angels book. Then you fast forward a few years, we're at the Courtney house in our Animal House phase after high school. And you were like, dude, check out this Hunter Thompson book, The Curse of Lono, where he goes to Hawaii to cover the Hawaii Marathon. And
yeah, like in true fashion with anything, once I get into somebody,
maniac. You got to know everything.
I want to go back to the beginnings. I want to find that first, the first book and work your way through. And The Curse of Lono is like a trade paperback, chock full of like Ralph Steadman illustrations. At the time, it was kind of a one that was not listed. So when you looked at what has Thompson put out, some lists did not mention The Curse of Lono. And I'm at the local bookstore, and here's this Curse of Lono. And what's funny is I know I did not spend too much money on this because I had it. At that time, I did not have the kind of money to just throw around. So I got this book, but if you look on Amazon right now for The Curse of Lono, it's $45. Are you
goddamn criminal savages?
I wouldn't do that.
That's horrific.
Exactly.
My cellular level.
But so the Curse of Lono is a wild ride to the dark side of Americana. He goes out to Hawaii. It's what Fear and Loathing was to Las Vegas. Crazy tales of a journalist's coverage of a news event that ends up being a wild ride to the dark side of Americana, like I said. Originally published in 1983, Curse features all the zany, hallucinogenic wordplay, feral artwork for which Thompson Ralph Steadman duo became known and loved. This curious book, considered an oddity among Hunter's oeuvre, was long out of print, prompting collectors to search high and low for an original copy. It sold out before the book even hit the stores, but this unlimited version is a different, smaller format, makes The Curse of Lono accessible to everyone. What's funny is it's all the crazy of Fear and Loathing, but he actually brings his son out.
You have to talk about his son's book too before the episode.
Oh yeah, he brings Juan out. Juan is his son, Juan Thompson. In Curse of Lono, he brings his son out, and they're trying to get a sailboat around it's a storm and rocks and crazy, and he's got his like 8-year-old kid on the boat, and you're reading this like, good God, what are you doing? Like at the time, I might have been 17, 18. I was nowhere near parenthood, but I'm like, why in the blue fuck do you have your kid on this sailboat as you're screaming at the ocean and trying to prove a point? And it's such an amazing book. And the book actually ends in kind of a cliffhanger where he's got to get out of Hawaii back to the airport, but he's got a car full of drugs and the cops are closing in on him or something. And it just ends. The book ends and you're like, fuck, does he get to the plane? What happens? And you have to sit back and go, this was a wonderful work of fiction. And maybe he was just telling a story.
With Hunter Thompson, it's kind of the same with Charles Bukowski, two of our favorite writers. The line between fact and fiction is always blurred. As Charles Bukowski once said, he wrote a short story about some poetry reading that he went to, and it was all kinds of crazy stuff. He ends up getting the girl at the end and causing havoc. And a friend of his read it and said, that's not at all what happened. And he goes, hey, man, I'm the hero of my own shit.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Hunter Thompson was very similar. They were kindred spirits. I don't know if they ever met each other or not, but they're kindred spirits. So I've got a couple quotes from Curse of Lono, but first I want to say my favorite image from that book, and I think you pointed it out to me when you lent it to me. You were like, check out this one scene. He goes out to cover the Hawaii Marathon, and he ends up getting drunk and wasted and standing on the sidelines and screaming at the runners. So they're running by, and he's like, run, you bastards!
Fucking run, you piece of shit.
And every time I see joggers, that always crosses my mind. I'm like, run, you bastards! So,
well, what's funny is in any human gathering, you're a runner, you assume that everyone there is rooting for the runner, and let's all be there for the runner. And what a contrast to maybe and what a contrast to maybe start your thing and somebody yells out, run, you filthy piece of shit.
While he's chugging down a bottle of wild turkey and smoking a joint.
Yeah, let's get this race over so I can go back and fuck your sister. I mean, who's expecting that?
That's the magic.
It's fucking great.
All right, so a couple quotes from Curse of Lono. The greatest mania of all is passion, and I am a natural slave to passion. The balance between my brain and my soul and my body is as wild and delicate as the skin of a Ming vase. And Ming vases don't have skin, so that's the creativity you get from Hunter Thompson.
No. Yeah. And really, a Ming vase is going to sit somewhere and just collect dust and serve zero purpose because
he did say they were
years old.
All right, so then the next one. Yeah. The highway from the airport into town was one of the ugliest stretches of road I'd ever seen in my life. The whole landscape was a desert of hostile black rocks, mile after mile of moonscape and ominous low-flying clouds. Captain Steve said we were crossing an old lava flow. Far down to the right, a thin line of coconut palms marked the new western edge of America. A lonely-looking wall of jagged black lava cliffs looking out on the white-capped Pacific. We were 2,500 miles west of the Seal Rock Inn, halfway to China. The first thing I saw on the outskirts was a Texaco station, then a McDonald's hamburger stand. How's that for fucking throwing you for a loop? Huh?
Wow.
You didn't expect a fucking Texaco and McDonald's, did you? No, you didn't. No.
You might have, but yeah. So the next book that came out was called Generation of Swine, which would be known also as volume 2, and this collected a shit ton of his 80s tenure at the San Francisco Examiner, and set against a backdrop of late night tattoo sessions and Soldier of Fortune trade shows. Thompson is at his apocalyptic best, covering the events such as the 87-88 presidential campaign, Vice President George Bush Sr., fighting for his life against Republican competitors like Alexander Haig, Pat Buchanan, Pat Robertson, detailing the GOP's obsession with drugs and drug abuse, while at the same time capturing momentous social phenomena as they occurred, like the rise of cable, satellite TV, CNN, 24 hours of mainline news, showcasing his inimitable talent for social and political analysis. Generation of Swine is vintage Thompson, eerily prescient, incisive, and enduring. That was a great book. I read that living on my own in my my first house.
Was that
after
was that
Snags
the place
and
in
I
Little Five
together.
Points where you lived with the band?
On 13th Street. That was when I had done my my kind of homeless. Is he ever going to
this
find
is when you're
a foothold?
when you're married to the Terminator. Oh god.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was dating
You
the
guys lived in that.
Terminator.
You guys had a cozy little
She
apartment
had
before
not.
she became a raging
It was
spawn
a
of
kick-ass,
Satan. Before
yeah,
that,
I mean, it
you
was.
guys had a nice little life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before she was possessed by, sadly, what I think a lot of women, after the age of like 30, they just, the plug
Yeah.
comes out the back.
She
And
turned into the
God help you.
Exorcist, but before that, you guys had a nice little life. They had a cute little
Yeah.
apartment. They had a cat named Floyd.
Yeah.
Was the cat Floyd? Yeah.
And
What else
Floyd,
do you
yeah,
need at
yeah,
that
Floyd
point,
was
you know?
very well read. Floyd hipped
Yeah.
me to a lot of books, a lot of existential. He was a
Cat.
very well read.
Yeah.
Cat.
Well, let
Absolutely.
me tell you something. You
Good
said he
to
covered
use.
the '88 presidential campaign. So, in 1988, right? I
Yes.
graduated from high school in '87. I move out to LA to try to become a famous film director, right? And that lasts. That's basically my Travis Bickle experience. You know, I'm staying with some friends of my mom,
Right.
and
Right.
I was a production assistant on the Dolly Parton variety show and the show called Hooperman that John Ritter was on. Met both of them. John Ritter was actually really cool, and
I like to hear that because he
he's
always
asking me
came off as a
asking me
very
about the Georgia
approachable.
Satellites. He's a big music guy, talking to us about Dylan and shit. And
Nice. Well, his father was a
Tex
country
Ritter,
star.
right.
Tex Ritter.
So,
His father was Tex Ritter.
I'm running out of my mother's money. I'm looking for a job in LA, and I go into this Italian restaurant, and I'm trying to get a job. I try to get a job as a bag boy at a grocery store. I go in the Italian restaurant. I'm trying to get a job as a busboy, and they're like, "Oh, go talk to Vito in the corner over there." And so I go over to the corner.
Oh, Jesus.
Big fat dude smoking a cigar with sunglasses, total fucking Sopranos deal. And ask if I can, apply for a job as a busboy. He goes, I tell you what, you come in tomorrow, work for free, show me what you got, I'll think about it. And at that moment in my head, I'm like, I'm going back to Atlanta. I'm done. And so,
yeah. Hey, why don't you suck my dick?
So I come back
I'll
to
think
Atlanta.
about it.
I sign up to a temp agency. One of the first jobs I get is working a burrito stand at the Democratic National Convention in 1988 in Atlanta. And the scene I remember from that total Hunter Thompson style scene is in front of our burrito stand. There's this local guy. There's a bunch of people from out of town, right? And the traffic's pretty heavy in front of our burrito stand as far as the cars are concerned. And this local guy's honking at this car in front of him, like, wanting him to move. This New Yorker jumps out of the car, goes over, starts slamming his hands on the hood of the local guy and goes, "You got a problem with me? You got a problem with me? Huh? Oh. Motherfucker!" And the guy just looking at him going, no, sir. I don't have a problem with
Holy shit, yeah.
So I'm sure
Jesus
if Hunter S.
Christ.
Thompson saw that.
But see, the lesson there is if you're gonna lay on the horn,
Oh, you
you
got to
better
be able to
follow
back
through.
that
You
shit
better
up.
be
Yeah.
prepared. Yeah, if I honk at you, you know what? It's on.
Right,
I'm
right.
out of the. Let's do this. Whether you can kick my ass
Right.
or not, let's go. I honked at
Right.
you. I initiated.
Right.
Let's
All right.
fucking
So what's
dance.
the next?
You know?
I want to get up to the Rum Diary and then start hitting the movies.
Yeah. So the next book was Songs of the Doomed.
Right.
Came out in 1990. This was volume 3. Thompson recalls like high and hideous moments in his 30 years in the passing lane. No one is safe from his hilarious, remarkable, astute social commentary. With Thompson's trademark insight, his passion about the state of American politics and culture, Songs of the Doom charts the long, strange trip from Kennedy to Quail in Thompson's freewheeling, inimitable style. Spanning 4 decades, 1950 to 1990, Thompson is at the top of his form while fleeing New York for Puerto Rico, riding with the Hells Angels, investigating Vegas sleaze, grappling with the Dukakis problem, and finally detailing his infamous lifestyle bust, trial, documents, and Fourth Amendment battle with the law. These tales, often sleazy and brutal and crude, are only the tip of what Jack Nicholson called the most baffling human iceberg of our time. Songs of the Doom is vintage Thompson, a brilliant, brazen body compilation of the greatest sound bites of gonzo journalism from the past 30 years. He was on an elevator and got into some like kind of offhand, made some silly comment to a female reporter
was
or
in a hot
something
tub with
on
some
the
chick
elevator.
and he twisted her tit. Yeah.
Yeah, he got in a lot of trouble. His next book was called Better Than Sex. It was like confessions. It was like a confession book
Papers number 4. Yeah.
of a political junkie, and and you know it's more of the same, but he really kind of details a lot of stuff. 100% pure gonzo screeds. He rips on Nixon, George Bush, Oliver North. He does kind of tuck into that whole mid 80s Oliver North thing. But, you know, he does deliver his trademark cocktail mixes of unbelievable tales and dark observations that makes up the U.S. presidential sweepstakes, if you will. But
let's go to the Rum Diary.
Book.
Or is there anything else between the Rum Diary? Screwjack? Screwjack?
Let me just see. Screwjack was another one that I was out in San Francisco. So after Better Than Sex, which was Gonzo Papers book 4, The Proud Highway, which is the Gonzo Letters book 1. This is like an early dip into a lot of his early writings.
The Letters of Hunter Thompson.
Yeah, The Proud Highway was a great book where you kind of you'd heard it, you'd done it, you're like, all right, you're starting to kind of look around, maybe see what time it is, maybe I'm gonna go home, it's late. But then The Proud Highway comes on, and you actually sit back down, tell me more, and he catches the tenor of the times of the 60s. He channels it all through his own razor sharp perspective, where he goes through just the 60s, all the tumultuous time. And it's, you know, he touches on Joan Baez. He talks about his mom, the NRA, a chain of newspaper editors. Just it's almost a bio of this person that you've read all these other things, and it's through letters to Norman Mailer, Charles Kuralt, Tom Wolfe, Lyndon Johnson, William Styron, Just it's
Oh,
it's
cool.
a
I haven't
really
read that
good
one.
book. So that's a good one. Proud Highway. I would recommend that. But his next book was
So the Rum Diary he wrote
Diaries.
when he's knocking around Puerto Rico, the first draft, anyways. Before he was famous, before the whole National Observer Latin America correspondent gig. It was his second novel. His first novel was called Prince Jellyfish, and that was never been published, but that was based on when he first goes to New York. He gets a job as a copy boy at Time magazine. He's broke as shit. Hanging out in New York, wants to become a great writer, and he writes a novel about somebody in the same situation. It's called Prince Jellyfish. It hasn't been published yet. Then he goes to Puerto Rico not long after that, gets a job covering sports down there, which ends up being covering the local bowling league, and he's bored out of his mind. He's got a girlfriend down there that comes down there, follows him down there, and a friend of his. So it's like Jack Kerouac, Dean Moriarty, and some chick. That's kind of the vibe, right? And
It's
yeah,
very
that's
Hemingway though.
that's a
just
great
in
book.
the whole
And he
approach.
never liked it. He published it in 1998 because he needed money. He never really thought it lived up to what he wanted it to be. It's one of my favorite Hunter Thompson books, and the movie version, which we'll get to, one of my favorite Hunter Thompson movies. My best scene out of that movie, though, some dude running around hunting chickens with a spear gun. That's just brilliant.
Oh,
Why don't you read the summary of the Rum Diary for us, Caps?
It was so it begins in 1959. Thompson's like 22. It's like you mentioned, it's a tangled love story of jealousy, treachery, and violent alcoholic lust in the Caribbean boomtown that was San Juan, Puerto Rico, in the late 50s. The narrator, freelance journalist Paul Kemp, irresistibly drawn to a sexy, mysterious woman, is soon thrust into a world where corruption and get-rich-quick schemes rule, and anything, including murder, is permissible. It's exuberant and mad, youthful, energetic, dazzling comedic romp provides a fictional excursion as riveting and as outrageous as the Fear and Loathing books. But it's a short novel, but it's so vivid. You feel like you're there. When he's hanging out at that house that the guy has grills burgers on his back patio and has locals come and get cheeseburgers and hang out and drink. And then he's going to try and write for the local paper. Just you feel like you're there. You feel like you're sitting with Hunter Thompson. Yeah. A phenomenal book. Really enjoyed the Rum Diary. And The Collector in Me, just like The Curse of Lono, I had not heard of that. So it was was very good.
Let me bust out a quote from Rum Diary. Like most others, I was a seeker, a mover, a malcontent, and at times a stupid hellraiser. I was never idle long enough to do much thinking. But I felt somehow that some of us were making real progress, that we had taken an honest road, and that the best of us would inevitably make it over the top. At the same time, I shared a dark suspicion that the life we were leading was a lost cause, that we were all actors, kidding ourselves along a senseless odyssey. It was the tension between these two poles, a restless idealism on one hand, and a sense of impending doom on the other, that kept me going. Rum Diary, Hunter S. Thompson.
Rum Diary. So he's got about 5 or 6 more. Just they've. I think some of these have come out.
What was
posthumously.
Screwjack about? Screwjack is one I remember you telling me about back in the day. Let's hit that. Movies.
Screwjack is a. All right. Screwjack is a very short novel. Came out in 2000. It's listed as a short story. And I actually just happened to be going through the mall. I was working for DHL and had a delivery and went past like a Barnes and Noble or a Walden Books, whatever's in the malls. And just in the front, just your peripheral, I see Hunter S. Screwjack. I'm like, what? I like stopped and walked over, and here's this book that now I gotta get in line and buy this. And as a courier, you're on a deadline to get everything delivered. But I'm like, I have to buy this immediately. Anyway, Screwjack is it was rumored to be like a private printing in '91. A limited run, but it came out in. There was a trade edition of Screwjack, and the description is Thompson quoted as saying, "We live in a jungle of pending disasters. Mescalito, a chronicle of his first mescaline experience and what it sparked in him while he was alone in an LA hotel room in February of '69. Also, a bout of paranoia that would have made most people scream no once and for all. But for Thompson, along with the downside, came a burst of creativity too powerful to ignore. So the result is a poetic, perceptive, wildly funny stream of consciousness. A take on 1969 America. It just gets weirder with its second offering, Death of a Poet, as Thompson describes like a trailer park confrontation with the dark side of a deservingly doomed friend. The heart of the collection lies in its final title piece, an unnaturally poignant love story, which makes the romantic tale Screwjack so touching. For all its queerness and the aching melancholy in its depiction of the modern man's burden, that we are doomed. Mama has gone off to real estate school, and after that, maybe even to law school. We'll never see her again. So it's written by Raoul Duke, which was Thompson's alter ego.
Alter ego, yeah.
But it's just a kind of a obscure prose, really good 3 kind of short stories. But in a way, it sheds light on just Thompson in the late '60s. And bizarrely, it was released. It's I don't know. Let's see. It's only $17 on Amazon, so that's kind of decent.
Yeah, he was always writing short stories back then and sending them off to magazines, and then they'd send him a rejection letter, and he'd send them a savage reply about how ignorant they were.
Hilarious.
But so that's probably some of those short stories he was writing back then. So let's get to the. Go ahead.
No, do you want to discuss his son's book?
Yeah, Hippus, because you've mentioned that one to me a few times in casual conversations.
Like anyone who loves Hunter Thompson, there's a book called Stories I Tell Myself by Juan Thompson, who, here's someone who was witness to the madness of what was Hunter Thompson. And much like Hemingway or even Charles Chaplin, we all love these people, but each, Charlie Chaplin and Hemingway both had sons who were horrifically affected by their father's kind of behavior. And,
there's always the other side.
It's a lot. The preface to Juan's book, he mentions, it's called Stories I Tell Myself. And he says, this is a memoir, not a biography, a highly subjective and unreliable memoir of how my father and I got to know each other over 41 years until his suicide in 2005. It's filled with exaggerations, misstatements, faulty recollections, obfuscations, omissions, and elisions. It also contains a lot of truth about my father and me, more truth than falsehoods, I think. If I'm deceiving you, though, I'm deceiving myself, first of all. It's just that all I have is memory, and memory is a treacherous thing. Treacherous as in unfaithful and perfidious. Double-crossing and underhanded. Memory is not objective. It's not an impartial recorder. Instead, a selective, changeable, and unreliable record being constantly revised, edited to suit our needs and desires. But long story short, he describes how his father was a very complex man, far too complex for him as his son. He describes he was famous, almost worshipped in circles, unknown in others, brilliant, a grand master of the written word, one of the great writers of the 20th century. He was also an alcoholic and a drug fiend, a wild, angry, passionate, sometimes dangerous, charismatic, unpredictable, irresponsible, idealistic, sensitive man with a powerful, deeply rooted sense of justice.
Don't forget he was a gun nut.
And, he mentions that no son can escape the claim of that relationship, good or bad, weak or strong, alive or dead, close or distant. Our fathers are with us. So, it's a love story to his father, but he does go into how he's there in the house with Hunter Thompson's grandson, who may have been 5 or 6, when Hunter Thompson kills himself in the other room, and he goes into the anger and the aftermath of just how a son would feel. It's an amazing book. I would recommend somebody read that after they read all the Hunter. Take the journey. Buy the ticket, take the ride. Get to know Hunter Thompson, see the movies, live it, and laugh and feel like, wow, what a great adventure. But then come back to the loved ones, the family that has to sit back and watch John Belushi burn out, watch James Dean burn out and die. Some others, you think of Sam Kinnison's brother. They're just these people that watch these amazing talents, like a flash in the pan, and it's a bit of truth where you realize, wow, that's what a great time, and I love Hemingway. But you watch, there's a Ken Burns documentary on Hemingway, and they interview his kids, and you realize, good God, what a piece of, not a piece of shit, but an alcoholic.
That's very common. There's a movie about a woman. There's a movie about a woman who was Picasso's significant other for many years, and he treated her like shit. There's another movie about Peter Sellers, same thing.
Oh yeah.
It's based on these women they were involved with. That just, these people were brilliant artists, but they were also psychopaths in a lot of ways. And
what's funny,
it's a double-sided thing.
What's funny as a fan is you almost take the opposite side to somebody who was there, and they want to tell you, yeah, it wasn't as all, and you're like, oh, fuck you,
No,
it's kind
of nobody's one-dimensional.
Yeah.
So let's hit the films real quick. I'm gonna read a summary of Where the Buffalo Roam, and then I'm gonna let you riff on it, because
just watch.
We watched this freaking movie religiously back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
We had it on I think you had it on VHS. I probably, if the pattern holds, I probably recorded your version of it, and then when you got it on Laserdisc, I recorded your version on VHS.
It's a constant reminder that I need to find a friend like me, and then I don't have to spend as much money.
Then you can get all the free shit.
Somebody can fucking cut me a copy.
Anyways, Here it is. So, Where the Buffalo Roam is a 1980 American semi-biographical comedy film which loosely depicts Hunter H. Thompson's rise to fame in the 1970s and his relationship with Chicano attorney and activist Oscar Zeta Acosta. The film was produced and directed by Art Linson. Bill Murray portrayed Thompson, and Peter Boyle portrayed Acosta, who in this film is referred to as Carl Laszlo Esquire. I think Acosta went missing, and at the time they weren't able to legally use his name. A number of other names, places, and details of Thompson's life are also changed. Thompson's eulogy for Acosta, titled "The Banshee Screams for Buffalo Meat," which appeared in Rolling Stone issue 254 in December 1977, serves as the basis of the film, although screenwriter John Kay drew from other works, including Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72, The Great Shark Hunt, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Thompson served as executive consultant on the film, although he famously threatened to beat the producer's head in with a lead pipe once he saw the movie. He did not like it at all. I think it's the best Hunter Thompson
It's
film.
amazing because it captures the kind of loose cannon aspect. You have Acosta, who is Laszlo, continuously coming back into Thompson's life to then manipulate him. There's certain things that all of us will do solely because the right person has come into the room and said, "Hey, we got to go right now." And against everything that your soul tells you, this is not a good idea. There's that one person that you'd be like, all right, let's do this. You're going to do it. And
see what the fuck happens.
That's throughout this movie. And Bill Murray just slays it. It's just an amazing movie. I will say it shaped the dialogue that I adapted to in high school.
Silky and I randomly to this day will text each other quotes from that movie or made up shit that's inspired by the vibe of that movie.
Just the cadence, cadence that Bill Murray uses, just all through that movie, it became my shtick at 16, 17, 18 years old.
That's probably why you ended up with a bottle of wild turkey in your locker too. Because of that movie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would never even gone near that. Between Fletch and Where the Buffalo Roam, that really shaped the personality that I had. I think a lot of late teens are searching for some kind of identity, and you will latch on to either an album, a movie.
Well, now it's TikTok, but anyway.
Right, but I mean, you'll try to affix who you are to something else until you realize that's not gonna, you're not gonna be able to stand on that too long, and then you kind of find your own way and become. But I think some of those things that you get into at a young age will kind of stay in your grab bag of kind of who you are, who you relate to, what you relate to most, what you love, definitely.
Well,
that movie,
that flick is a classic. For years it was only available with a neutered soundtrack because the video company didn't have the rights to the
it was an abomination. You couldn't get through it.
But the soundtrack has been restored and it's packed with classic killer classic rock music and
the songs move the story along too. Like if you get on Amazon Prime right now and watch Where the Buffalo Roam, right off the bat the music really just kind of pulls you in, and you're there, you're in it. And for us, having seen it that way for so long, suddenly you're like, what the hell? Something's wrong. And it's this music, this score music
It
that's
was like this corporate video
yeah,
soundtrack music. It was
it
terrible.
made it impossible to watch for years. But I had my
Yeah.
own copy, so I was fine. But
I found a bootleg copy at a video store too, so I was able to survive during that time. Silky rocked a "Where the Buffalo Roam" inspired playlist that we'll have on the website as
yeah,
well.
you're gonna get all the songs that were in the movie, and then I just kind of got weird and tacked on things that were prevalent to those times. So if you just kick back and enjoy it, you'll get it. It's a good playlist. I
You'll
thought
get
it
the
was good.
vibe. All right, let's get on to the lesser Hunter S. Thompson movies. Probably the one that you and I like the least. I'll read the summary and then we can
Mhm.
talk about it briefly and move on. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a 1998 American avant-garde satirical buddy road black comedy film adapted from Hunter S. Thompson's 1971 novel of the same name. It was co-written and directed by Terry Gilliam and stars Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro as Raul Duke and Dr. Gonzo, respectively. The film details the duo's journey through Las Vegas as their initial journalistic intentions devolve into an exploration of the city under the influence of psychoactive substances. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was released on May 22nd, 1998 by Universal Pictures. The film received mixed reviews from critics and was a financial failure, but has since become a cult classic among some film fans, but not us. And I'm just going to say why I don't think it worked, and then I'll let you take it away, Silky. But
Okay.
I don't think it worked because it was too literal to the book. And the book is a lot of novels are interior experiences about psychological experience, basically. And the book works really well because there's a lot of interior monologue. As an interior monologue, seeing the gaudy world of Las Vegas through the lens of psychedelic drugs and all the rest of it, the book sticks very literally to all of that. They don't make it cinematic, in my opinion, and it just starts to fucking drag. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
it's got some really wild sequences. Hunter S. Thompson shows up for a little cameo. I think Johnny Depp gets the spirit of Hunter Thompson,
Yeah.
appreciates it.
Yeah.
I just don't think Terry Gilliam
No,
captured the book or made it cinematic enough. Take it away, Silky. What
I
do you got?
I think the movie is embraced by the younger kids who had zero idea that this was a real person, a real writer, had not read any of the books. It was all solely riding the wave of the popularity of Johnny Depp. And Depp is a great actor. He brings it for any role he's in, and I celebrate the man. Um, Anything he's been in. I didn't always like the movie, but his acting, he is a genius. He does have that. However, this movie it pales in comparison to just the off the cuff, um, uh, just easy portrayal that Bill Murray brought to it, whereas Depp may have brought a studied version where it was a little more serious portrayal and loses the just the fun of it. And I thought that movie just paled. The Rum Diaries, the second one, is far better.
I agree.
A more relaxed portrayal.
Yeah, I think Rum Diaries is less self-conscious and less
Yeah,
contrived.
I think
It cap
a lot of your fans pounced on Fear and Loathing, like, oh, this is the new thing. Yeah, we've always been into him. This is great. Yeah, this is our movie. And you're sitting back a little bit older and having read and seen Thompson. You're
Yeah.
like, this is garbage, and y'all think you know who this is, and you don't. You just don't.
I didn't
Um,
I didn't think it was garbage. I just thought it was boring. But as
it,
you alluded, let's move on to
yeah,
the Rum Diary
yeah.
film adaptation. The Rum Diary is a 2011 American comedy drama film written and directed by Bruce Robinson, based on the 1998 novel of the same name by Hunter S. Thompson. The film stars Johnny Depp, Aaron Eckhart, Michael Rispoli, Amber Heard, Richard Jenkins, and Giovanni Ribisi. I thought the Rum Diary captured that book a lot more competently than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Now, to be fair, to literally do a film of a book like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is as big of a challenge as Cronenberg doing Naked Lunch. Now, I thought Cronenberg, because he didn't stick to the literal adaptation of Naked Lunch, but he captured the spirit of it and he made it cinematic, because cinema is a different fucking forum than literature.
They did an abstract adaptation.
He did it. I thought Cronenberg pulled it off with Naked Lunch, whereas Gilliam was staying too true to the fucking book and didn't do it with the film. But I think Rum Diary, and granted, that's an easier book to adapt to film.
Oh yeah,
I thought they did a much better job with Rum Diary.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think Fear and Loathing was just a very rehearsed, stiff delivery.
Right.
And I think that, your core audience for that movie maybe didn't read the books and things, so they just took it at face value and they loved it.
What do you think about Rum Diary? I gotta piss like a banshee.
Rum Diary was great. I like.
I gotta piss like a racehorse.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up. I'm good. We're about Thompson.
Rum Diary was good. Check it out. Good flick. I remember in the early 2000s, I was in between careers. I'd worked at a software company for a while. I got bored with that. I inherited a little bit of money. I started doing freelance film and video work. At some point, I realized I didn't want to do freelance film and video work because the hours were insane. You were dealing with... I'm in Atlanta. I was dealing with a lot of arrogant pricks from LA and New York who eventually I lost patience with. And so I'm working a temp job and applying to go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree early 2000s. And one of the things I did to entertain myself is I would log on to ESPN.com and read Hunter S. Thompson's sports column. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he's doing, early 2000s. 2004, Bush gets reelected. He decides the world is doomed and fucking shoots himself with a shotgun. Now, that's not the only reason. He was also old and his body's falling apart and, Yeah,
I think he was unable to kind of string words together anymore. I don't think he had the capacity to write, and I feel like writing was his oxygen,
I think he could write. I think because I thought his column for ESPN.com was entertaining, even though it was it was sports, but it's Hunter Thompson, so he'd ramble off on other tangents.
I think he'd reached that point where he felt he was a caricature of himself, and
he had to get a hip. I remember he had to get a hip replacement. His body. He's old. His body's falling apart. One of his weaknesses, I think, that you and I have luckily avoided, is he took politics too seriously.
Right.
And so in his mind, the wrong guy gets elected. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. He didn't realize they're all the same. They're all fucking
bullshit. In 4 years, there'll be some new loser.
It'll be some other puppet they're putting in there, right? Yeah. So basically, in his mind, it's the end of the world, and he fucking blows his brains out.
Yeah. Horribly with his grandkid in the house. That Juan Thompson book is really a must read for many reasons, but it really wraps up who the man was from a different angle. So,
yeah. Well, there you have it. So that's Hunter S. Thompson, the man, the myth, the legend, and also as a
The
bonus
dog.
feature, the dog. Yeah. So
That's how deep we run, people. We're going to give you one, and then we might bring something else in. So,
yeah. Oh,
El
El
Condor.
Condor is making a. What's up, El Condor?
Say something. Hello.
Say hi, Skullheads.
Hi, Skullheads. Oh, okay. It's too much. All right.
Oh, no Skullheads. All right,
No,
next time.
not today. Maybe next time.
Next
All right.
time. All right, brother. This has been
All right.
fucking awesome. This is one of my favorite episodes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Adios, kids.
All right. Peace out, motherfuckers.